Right. Cool. So I guess we're good to go. I mean, all right, y'all. Well, once again, happy Earth Day. Welcome to our race, food, climate, and you panel with very special guests. We're just gonna, honestly, we might as well just have y'all introduce yourselves, probably in the order of the clubhouse column. So, um, yeah, can y'all please introduce yourselves?
Yeah, I'm probably not going to do this in order, but this is Brenda speaking. I am Brenda Sanders, Executive Director and founder of Afro-Vegan Society. And I also am engaged in a lot of local activism, food justice activism here in Baltimore through our community center, Thrive Baltimore, co-founder of Vegan Soul Fest, one of the largest veg fests in the U.S., and co-owner of the Greener Kitchen plant-based deli, among other things. But this isn't the Brenda show, so I'm gonna go ahead and pass the mic.
I'll take that mic up. Thank you so much, Brenda, and thank you, Jamila, and everyone for being involved in this and for inviting me to this. My name is Christopher Sebastian. I am a journalist, a technical writer, and I'm a digital researcher. I am the co-founder of VGN, which is a digital media company that also does social media management for nonprofits and grassroots organizations that are mission aligned and helping them with their social media and in bringing awareness about the necessity of a plant-based diet or the importance of a plant-based diet, especially for climate change, for health, and for other animals on the planet as well.
I suppose I'll pick it up next. Hello, I'm Yvette, she, her pronouns. I'll keep it super short. I'm a writer and social critic. I advocate for total liberation, abolition through my writing. And I focus both on animal liberation and human social justice issues, the latter for a few decades and some change now. And I'm really honored to be here, very excited. And I hope that, if anything, my presence here today can persuade some of you to sort of jump in and get involved in climate discussions, because you don't need to be, eco justice celebrity, or you don't need to be, you don't have to have a certain level of knowledge that, this all sounds very intimidating when you first step into it. There's a lot to learn in all the statistics, and, science gets complicated. And I just want to be here to reassure anyone that we can and should really get involved. This isn't a teacher or student situation. Our voices are really needed. We really need to brainstorm. Things haven't been figured out. And so whatever our knowledge or research, whatever our lived experiences are, they're very valuable to this conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, and hi everyone. My name is Isaias Hernandez. I am an environmental educator and creator of Curb Run Vegan. I believe that environmental education is a human right, and so I think that my work is very grounded in 3 pillars, which is environmental justice, veganism, and zero waste. And I really believe that community-based frameworks are justice-oriented solutions. And so without our community, we're not able to liberate ourselves from this ecological crisis. And so recognizing that a lot of grassroots organizing and a lot of indigenous communities have been at the forefront of these environmental movements to liberate against these injustices are the solutions for climate change. So thank you so much, and I'm so excited to be here.
And hey everyone, I'm Jamila Alfred. I am the multimedia marketing director for Afro-Vegan Society and content creator behind the Soulful Veganista. I can go more, but let's get into it, y'all. This is gonna be real fun. Okay, great. So getting started with our first question, that'll be for how about we start once again. I know that not everyone sees the order in which we are doing things on Clubhouse. So I guess anyone who just feels compelled to answer first would be a good idea.
And also, don't feel compelled to answer. Like, if you have, something to say, then say it, but don't, feel pressured, if somebody already said something that, that applies to you or whatever. So
right. We're just trying to be chill. Okay, cool. So first question is, was there a moment for any of you where you realized you had to get serious about environmental issues? And I can just repeat that one more time. Was there a moment for any of you where you realized you had to get serious about environmental issues?
Hello, this is Yvette speaking. I'll just lead off then by saying no. For me, I was raised by two Indigenous women, one of whom grew up on a reservation, and I was kind of raised in this way that it was always of importance. But I do want to reiterate that through my work, I actually didn't really see the value or think that I had the knowledge for a very long time to be able to really contribute or to be valuable in an area like this, because it was just seemed so inherent a part of life. Like there was maybe something separate and very scientific going on with this conversation. So it's just always been important. It's always been integral, and I'm only now seeing, and by now I mean like the last month, maybe, seeing how integral a lot of my research really has been in a lot of these environmental justice issues. So I'm really happy to plug everything together. This is Yvette, and I'm done speaking.
This is Brenda. And I would say for me, it was when I started to actually do environmental justice work, which was only back in, I think, 2016. Before that point, growing up, I grew up in the hood, so I didn't even know that I was a part of the environment. Honestly, I honestly thought that the environment was like somewhere else where like there were lots of trees and like white people went to shoot animals. I did. I thought that like you had to go to the environment. So it wasn't until I actually started to do the justice side of work that I was just like, oh, this is bad. Like this is bad. And that was when I decided to actually start using my voice and using my platform to do environmental activism. This is Brenda, and I'm done speaking.
Yeah, I think for me, at a young age, I grew up in LA my whole life in Dongguan, and I grew up in affordable housing my whole life with food stamps, and like really recognized at a younger age that like my environment was designed differently compared to different cities in LA. And my earliest memory was when I was, I think, in third or fourth grade. I had a teacher saying that we were going to a nice community to go pick up, learn about ocean conservation. And so I was like confused of what she meant by nice community. And so I remember we were having to pick up trash like for like at least 2 hours. And I was like, why do we have to pick up their trash? And so I asked the question saying like, why does no one come to my community and pick up our trash? And so I got in trouble for asking that question, was told I was being very disrespectful. And so I think that when I was a senior in high school, I learned about environmental justice because a local organization came and talked about like, oh, did you know, like, based off your class and your race, like you either live near a toxic environment. And I was like, wait, like there's words for this. And so that kind of got me into environmental justice, to be like, wow, these are the words that like I always had questions to, that I didn't really have access to learn about in school, because the only thing that was taught about was like climate change and like the science side, but there was never really intersections between race, class, and gender. And so that got me invested to learn more about environmentalism in college, but also realizing that like it's so elitist, inaccessible. Many of the frameworks that are used in these institutions are not very focused on like liberation of communities. And so for me, having to really unpack and unlearn all of that elitist language was also super essential in my understanding in environmental justice.
All right, this is Christopher, and I swear to God, I can listen to all of these people talk all day because I already have questions of my own based on the answers to the questions that like we were just listening to. But like to answer Jamila's first question, my introduction was probably a decade ago. Like I had been aware of like the climate emergency for 1,000 years because I'm obviously that old. But like it became real for me because in my role as a technical writer. I've been doing that for about 10 years, and most of the work that I've done has been with government contractors who work for regulatory agencies like the Fish and Wildlife Service in the United States or the National Park Service, the Bureau of Land Management, all of these like regulatory bodies. And a lot of the reports that I would actually participate in the writing of or the editing of were like reports that were talking about environmental issues, biological opinions, environmental baseline surveys, or like environmental impact statements on certain government projects. And like just by sheer proximity to all of these issues, and like having like I had to learn about them like almost like because like despite the fact that I like wasn't wanting to, like that just became an everyday part of my job. And it became really, really serious and urgent for me in a way that it didn't seem to for other people that I was working with. And part of the reason for that is because I did recognize, as Isaias was saying, that like the people that it impacted socioeconomically, politically, racially, like look a lot more like me than my colleagues. And so the luxury of like just like treating this as a job was denied to me in a very real way, and it made me want to become more active. Oh, and I'm done speaking.
Hey, this is Jamila. I love that. I also, by the way, can y'all hear me? Okay, cool. So I would say, like, for me, when I was like in fourth grade or fifth grade, we had like a recycling club, and I thought that was really cute. I wanted to join it. I didn't even really understand what it really meant to be a part of a recycling club, but I didn't really start getting serious about everything until I started watching documentaries after going vegan, because that's what you do. You just basically binge watch documentaries for like the first year, because it really makes you feel empowered. It makes me feel like, yes, I know now, so therefore I must do. And when I learned more about, like, there was I think a documentary called like Plastic Planet or something like that, or either way, those things really helped me like shape myself up and just it was a point in time where I kind of looked inward. I was like, what can I do? Even though we know that it's not just what an individual can do. But at that point, I was like, yeah, there's something I can do about this, and I have to do about this because this is ridiculous. Yeah, Jamila done speaking. And actually, I just almost forgot I was the moderator, because we should just go on to our next question after that. Okay, cool. So, next question. There is such an overwhelming variety of global environmental catastrophes that need to be addressed right now. Is there one issue that feels especially urgent to you?
This is Christopher, so I'm just gonna unmute my microphone and start answering that question. Yeah, it seems to me that the elephant in the room when we're having discussions about climate change is animal agriculture, the globalization of it, the industrialization of it. And I feel like that has a unique sense of urgency for me because obviously I'm biased. Animal liberation is as important to me as Black liberation for a variety of reasons that we can go into at a later time. But like really, like just the level of the level of resistance that I experience when I talk about that as an aspect of climate emergency that needs to be addressed that I get from other people is so significant that it tells me that just like anything else, whatever it is that you have close resistance to, that's what you probably need to work on. Everyone wants to change their light bulb and take shorter showers and like and I'm gonna turn off the water and not brush my teeth, but we're very, very attached to our vegan cheeseburgers collectively in Western society, and changing that is, to me, absolutely necessary because, like, I don't take a flight five times a day. I don't buy a mobile phone 5 times a day. But the impact of our food choices really needs to be examined, and we really, really do not want to interrogate those things. So to me, yes, that feels like it is the most important focus that I would use, and I am done speaking.
I guess I would say, for me, I think it's understanding like biodiversity loss, and there's links between a term that's used as biocultural conservation, is that when there's a decrease of biodiversity, there's also a decrease in language diversity, and there's a decrease in cultural diversity. And so in trying to understand the effects of colonization and how it's altered a lot of ecosystems globally, it's super important that we also ensure the protection of environmental land defenders that are also protecting all living beings, both humans and non-human animals. And so I think that one of these issues that is really plaguing these industries is the fact of neocolonialism of these extractive industries, especially industrial meat, immigration industrial complex, the military industrial complex, that are really destroying these ecosystems. And so I think that is one of the most important things to kind of acknowledge, and also protecting land defenders, that the amount of land defenders that are murdered every year is increasing year over year. So that is something that is very concerning.
Hello, this is Yvette. I think I would answer your question maybe not as literally, if you don't mind. All of the things that were just mentioned by Sebastian and Isaias are also high up on my radar. But I think my focus, or the most alarming factor for me, would be kind of not recognizing the interconnectedness of how the root issue, I think, of a lot of these impacts is the racism and is the white supremacy, the kind of the othering. Whether you're talking about patriarchy, speciesism, ableism, the kind of us versus them that sort of, I think, allows climate change and all of these impacts to sort of thrive and be maintained. Because we can't necessarily shake and wake everybody up to a lot of these emergencies, especially when, as mentioned, so many of us kind of see these environmental issues as this outdoor issues that are not affecting our inside our homes in any way. But when we realize how it's the core of this othering, the core of this sort of hatred that makes everything possible, I think that's really what gets me the most. I think that's really where I'm focused on, is kind of building the bridges between all of these issues that we all care about. And I think that can really help us kind of gain momentum and get everybody, if not on the same page, at least working towards the same goals, whether we're realizing that or not. This is Yvette, and I'm done speaking.
Yeah, so for me, it might be a little bit different because my work it's not just working with marginalized communities, but it's like working with the people at the furthest margins of community of society. And when you get that far into the margins, you start to realize that like a lot of information isn't even trickling down into communities in the ways that it does in other communities. And so you have folks thinking like, oh, like poor people of color don't care about these things. And it's like, no, like they don't know, because nobody is prioritizing bringing this information into these spaces. And then it's like, as soon as the information is brought into those spaces, people show you like they do care, and they are appalled, and they are motivated to do something. And if you can be a person who is providing solutions, especially even if it's just like information, if it's like motivation, if it's some of the stuff that, all right, I was like stalking y'all a little bit on social media. Okay, not stalking, okay, it was more so like just checking up on you for hours. And so I see like the information that you're putting out, the videos, the inspiration. Like I was inspired, and I'm already doing this work. And so, like just doing talks, y'all are just amazing people and just really doing it. And that's the kind of thing that we have to keep moving forward. Like this information needs to be widely disseminated so that everybody has the option to be a part of the solution. For me, I'm starting from scratch in a lot of the communities and spaces where I find myself, because like people are in survival mode. It's just like getting up every day. Am I going to have a home? Am I going to, get evicted? Am I going to have food? Like that kind of thing. And so, bringing this information into their spaces is just like, wow, that's going on. Like that's happening. And then immediately feeling like, okay, what can I do? Like, that's the question I get all the time. Okay, what can I do? So let's start having solutions. Let's start having answers to that question. And so, yeah, so like for me, it's just like all of it, because none of it has made it into those communities.
Yeah, Brenda, I totally love that because my thing is, for me, I would say everything, but what I'm most focused on is like the means of production, like how industry and all those type of things affect our communities in general. So really, I would just say everything. I would want to go on more and be like, this is what I'm worried about. It's just the plastic, that what plastic does to to throw it away, what plastic contains, the fact that it's mineral oil. There's just so many things. Even animal agriculture. That's something that really puts a stick in my craw. I don't know if that's the saying, but whatever it is, it does that. So that that'll always grind my gears because that's something that we feel like is completely necessary, but then it destroys everything. Not people just think it's just runoff into our oceans and big like poo lagoons. No, it's way more than that. It's our earth, it's our air, it's everything. So yep, everything, most def. Okay, cool. Well, in that case, let's move on to our next question, being, do you think that our personal lifestyle changes alone will be enough to avert these climate catastrophes?
Hard no. That's from Christopher Sebastian.
I'm sorry. What was that? What was that? What was that answer?
Hard no. Our cases of will not change. We need legislative action. We need we need political action. We need corporate action. Although I'm with Jamila, not saying Susan means a production girl, but it's individual choices are not going to make a difference in the end. Not alone.
Yeah, absolutely agree with that. Whereas, the bulk of the work that we do is working with individuals and communities to educate people about the fact that they have other options, but at the same time, there needs to be a groundswell of just movement that's gonna actually shift things in a major way, because we're pushing back against huge corporations. We're pushing back against systems, systems of exploitation and extraction, right? So me eating a veggie burger is not necessarily, I mean, even if all of us, in this clubhouse room are eating veggie burgers, I just can't see that making the kind of substantial change in the amount of time that we need for substantial change to be made to shift the entire paradigm. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, and this is Yvette. I'll go ahead and add a third no to that. Of course, no. Even if we rally behind these cleaner industries and the dominating industries that create most of the destruction are powerful enough just to keep our solution, our cleaner industry solutions out of the areas that need them most. We try to implement new technologies and new ideas, and just because we need laws, because of how things are set up, because of the way that some of these industries, these corporations play into taxes. They're there to stay. So individual action will certainly not will not cut it alone. This is Yvette, and I'm done speaking.
Yeah, and I think that for me, like where we live in a system that is just focused on like maximum GDP growth that still exacerbates injustices. I think that like as always, as everyone said, like vegan capitalism won't really save us. Like it's like another form of green capitalism saying like this is better for the environment. This like factually, yes, in science, but in long term, like that's not going to end or dismantle these extractive systems. And so I think that in people's roles in trying to do this individual change, that they actually like extend themselves to do it locally, to say like, what can you do? Like not only supporting like mutual aid funds, redistribution of resources, ensuring that there's like protection or using your platform to center activists that are, don't have social media or need something for amplification, because that is necessarily a lot of activists that I've met that cannot be on social media because they're being tracked. And so I think that it's super important that like in the system that we live in today that is still perpetuating injustice, how much we can reduce it through a legal framework. But yet I think many, especially abolitionists, and I'm still leaning on and learning into it, believe that, you cannot live in this system that still exacerbates this injustice. And so that is something that I'm still learning along that way.
I definitely want to add one more thing. Like, I don't want anybody to get the impression that like individual choices don't matter at all, because that seems to be a big get out of jail free card for a lot of people to not change anything and in fact like use as many resources as possible in as many ways as they can. And that's also not right. So there's not like a clear answer to this, because you need both, or you need more than one, like more than one thread pulling at this.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to hop on that too, because once again, going back to the question, I used to believe that it was just our actions alone. Because when you're in your early 20s and like you think that a tote bag, like a mason jar will, end all these, horrible things. But and I really did wish it was like that, because I remember my zero waste journey, kind of at the beginning of me going vegan or getting into activism. That was annoying, and I learned real quick what green capitalism, greenwashing, all those types of things are. But yeah, we do need to like empower ourselves to get involved in our local governments. Pressure our politicians. All that type of stuff. It works. Together, but also our individual like actions really do matter. And I do understand it like that it's probably like a negative 0.00015% chance that anything could change just by our individual actions alone. But I really do think that those things can work in harmony, still pressuring our local government, saying that we make bills and laws and, have things passed, pressuring our lawmakers. But doing nothing to me is just, then why are you even complaining about it if you're not doing nothing? Even if you don't, your individual actions are like contributing so little to something, you're still doing something, and you're putting that intention out there that can also inspire others to do something similar. So yeah, that's just me. Okay, cool. So in that case, nice. Let's move on to our next question. We're moving things right along. We're probably going to be ending in the next 20 or so minutes, because I know, Isaias, you have to hop off, which is totally fine. So our next question is, the environmental justice movement had to be created to address the fact that the people of color in frontline communities were substantially more impacted by every environmental challenge. What are some of the ways you're aware of that Black, Indigenous, and Brown people and Brown communities are fighting for environmental justice? So I'll repeat that. What are some of the ways you're aware of BIPOC communities are fighting for environmental justice? Wait.
I did my best, Jamila. Okay.
Okay. All right.
So basically, what are some of the ways that you know of, right?
Right.
Because we probably have heard like stories about different frontline communities who are working on different fronts. So what are some of the ways that we know of that folks are working on environmental justice issues in their communities?
Thank you for the clarification.
Hello, this is Yvette. Isaias, did you want to? Okay. Yeah, that microphone, I'm not very quick. I know of Black Indigenous organizations. By the way, there are very few reaching out specifically to marginalized communities. So that's really important that we're kind of, stepping in our own spaces. That's one thing that we're doing because they get left out and ignored and all of the things that, people have already mentioned. So I do know that there are organizations who are literally collecting their own data because beyond being a statistic of, this area has lung cancer at this rate, or this area has whatever asthma, we're not really paying attention to some of the broader ramifications of a lot of this environmental pollution and degradation in our area. So, for example, I know there was an article in, I want to say 2019, that was pretty widely circulated. It was about Indigenous women and children going missing in areas next to, these man camps, these man workspaces, predominantly men-led and run workspaces, where we're building pipelines and doing all this, work that the Indigenous communities surrounding the area were having all of these people missing, and nobody was caring or reporting about it. And it became a really huge issue, as it is globally still. Actually, it was consistent globally, this was happening, and nobody was talking about it or doing anything about it until, we ourselves, we're sort of reporting and collecting data and making people understand that this issue is so much wider than just the pollution itself. So that's one thing I can think of, and that is much broader of a topic, though, to understand really what it is that's left out of the conversation. We don't even really know yet. We're not really included. We don't have the same platforms and reach yet, and we're just figuring out, how bad this is. I think the article was called "The Dark Side" or "The Darker Side of Fossil Fuels." I believe that was the title, and it's pretty interesting. I should pull that up. But yes, this is Yvette, and I'm done speaking.
Yeah, and I think that when it comes to like environmental racism and injustices, I know that community-based participatory research came out of the fact that a lot of grassroots activists, and especially the mother of the environmental justice movement, Hazel M. Johnson, was fed up with the fact that like many public agencies that are supposed to serve the community and people were not doing their job. And so I think like environmental justice organizations receive the least amount of funding compared to any other environmental organization. And so the ones that generally like get the largest funding is like big green orgs that are just focused on different situations, different sectors. And so I think that when we're trying to kind of advocate for justice in our communities, I know that in my area, Pacoima Beautiful in the San Fernando Valley, actually is teaching kids about environmental justice. And I think the importance about teaching kids at a young age is super powerful and impactful in the way that they maneuver in this, navigate themselves in this society, because this is what really empowers the community to take action against injustice. And so I think for me, to the second thing about like zero waste, I frame it as a human rights issue, because most of the plastic pollution that is being created through petrochemical industries is disproportionately affecting Black and Indigenous and brown folks. And so when we look at like plastic pollution being a huge issue, it's super important that the communities that have tried, especially in Tejas, in Texas, EJ organization trying to go against this petrochemical industry, these organizations have large amounts of funding and lawyers that will go against any type of environmental lawyer to sue them or destroy their career. And so I think it's so tricky within this system about politics and funds. And so how do we divest away from this industry and like continue to sue them and hold them accountable? I'm done speaking.
Yes, so Jamila and I both have been involved in environmental justice work here in Baltimore. there was a local fight, and there is still a local fight going on around trash burning incinerators, which are usually built in, almost always built in low income Black and brown communities, and they're very polluting, and very detrimental to the community's health. And so there was a group of just grassroots activists who were kind of led by this young girl named Destiny Watford. I mean, I know that, like, well, she was just kind of like out in front, and she's so passionate and just driven, and became the face of this fight to stop this trash burning incinerator that had been approved to be built down in South Baltimore. And they won, and because of that win, she actually won the Goldman Prize. Was the youngest person ever to win like the highest award for environmental activism. And I mean, that's right here, homegrown in Baltimore. Like, people just being tired of being sick and tired, being sick and tired of being sick and tired, and knowing that, you know, a lot of the negative health outcomes were directly connected back to, you know, the trash burning incinerators. There's a medical waste burning incinerator, there's a trash burning incinerator, and they were trying to build another trash burning incinerator all in South Baltimore. And the community said no, and they rose up and they beat that incinerator. And you know, Jamila and I both have been working on Clean Air Act here in Baltimore at different times, but just both involved in that work. And it's Black folks, it's, you know, Black and brown folks who are at the front lines of doing this work here in Baltimore.
Okay.
Oh,
Christopher, and I am going to try to keep this as possible because there's really so much to be said about BIPOC people who are doing this work, and doing it in what I think might be some really unconventional ways. I think that when we think of environmental work, we think of individual activists, or we tend to think of like smaller grassroots organizations, and those are great as well. But I am such a privileged person in that, like, over the past decade, that I have had, like, you know, the opportunity to work on so many different projects as a technical writer. I've come in contact with so many organizations who do this work, and you know, and really do it in quite subversive ways. I've taught people, or participated in projects in indigenous communities in Canada and in Alaska, and there are tons of stories that I can tell. Right now, I have to be working on a project, and I have the privilege of working on a 400-page report that is being put together by an organization, or a consultant in Hawaii. Because there's a government project that's actually happening on one of the Hawaiian islands, and I can't really talk with specifics about the project itself because this is not a published report, but it's done by a group called Hanawa Consulting that is run entirely by a team of Native Hawaiians. And these people are archaeologists, these people are anthropologists, and they do the work of cultural anthropology, and they work with the government bodies and regulatory agencies on the preservation of natural resources and cultural resources. And just as an example, right now I am working on this enormous cultural impact assessment that these mostly women have been putting together, and the work that they have done. Even though it is a cultural impact assessment, it is about the preservation of natural resources, and I geek out about this because I'm like, oh my God, I actually get to work on something and participate in something that's so huge. Because for the people that they're talking about, there are several different types of Native people in Hawaii. For the people that they are talking about, or the areas that they're talking about, natural resources are cultural resources to these people. And so the introduction of government projects into certain areas, they have the ability to step in and say, well, you can't do this here. or like, or you can do this, but you will have to do it in a different way because, like, for our people, these plants, these, like, these species that like actually exist here, these are cultural resources, and because of the way, and this is again why I say that like individual actions like have to be aligned with legislative actions, like, as the law is written, like, we have the authority to actually stop this project from happening, or to, to force the government to interact with this, like, with these areas in a different way than they were intending to. And that to me is so empowering because, like, a lot of us feel like we have to grind away in poverty or in, like, in like exile, and like, and like, here are people who have actually started a consulting agency and are using it in a really, really positive and impactful way to affect change and preserve like natural spaces and preserve cultural and cultural heritage as well at the same time, which is like an enormous, powerful, empowering environmental issue. And so, like, I'm so like, I'm so sincerely humbled. Like, this is just one of literally hundreds of organizations and, like, and people that, like, I've had the privilege of working with for like, over a very, very long time, and keeping relationships with these people is so important. Even after the project is financially done, so I end up referring to them as, like, as sources for articles I end up writing in my adjacent group journalism. And they're just such a wealth of information, absolutely brilliant, and I personally get to learn so much that it is a very helpful experience. So this is Christopher, and I'm done speaking.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Christopher. Speaking of referring people, I see here in the comments, someone asked, do y'all know of any specific environmental justice orgs we can prioritize promoting? So very quickly, if y'all have any orgs that are, Black, Brown, BIPOC type folks, please let us know who they are. If anything is at the top of your head, thank you for that, Brenda, because the Destiny, that's who I remember. There's someone else in Baltimore that does stuff, but I'll get to that one of these times. But yeah, anyone y'all would like to promote really quickly?
Yeah, I have to actually go, but I was going to give some few organizations. So if you are in the New York area, Uprise Brooklyn is a Black-led EJ org. If you live in Oakland, Seja or Seha, I forgot the name, Hip Hop Caucus. I forgot they do environmental justice and like dancing and other creative things. And also if you're in LA, Pacoima Beautiful. It's generally, there's just a lot of organizations in your own city to check out. Definitely support Afro-Vegan Society. But yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else before we move on and Isaias has to hop off? Okay, cool. Well, thank you, Isaias. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. I know you got a lot going on today.
Thank you so much for having me, and it was really an honor to be with everyone. So hopefully we can all be together again. Bye.
Most Def, happy birthday. Okay, cool. So yeah, we have a couple more minutes left, so I'll go on to our next question. And that is, how can social media be used as an effective tool in spreading awareness of environmental justice issues?
All right, this is Christopher again, and I can jump right on that one because I actually work in social media, and I think that social media is one of our most powerful tools to spread awareness about environmental justice issues or any type of issues, because we see the power of social media every day. Like when you talk about like a lot of the issues that we are faced with, or a lot of the things that we talk about in our larger society, social media has become in many ways the like new public square. And like this is where people collectively come to talk about ideas, or like where ideas actually get birthed. And like so many modern movements, like the art of political organizing on digital media is like it's incredible. Like we've seen the Black Lives Matter movement start as a hashtag and become an internationally recognized phenomenon. In fact, like it has been reported that like Black Lives Matter is the largest social movement in history. And like, you see things like Me Too, which was started by Georgia Burke, and like, that actually had gained popularity in 2018. Again, the hashtag, like things like Bring Back Our Girls, like Michelle Obama, like, she was part of that. The Arab Spring, like the protests in Hong Kong, like, so much has happened over social media. So for me, like, I think that social media is one of the most important tools in our toolbox. And in some ways, it's unpredictable because the spontaneous nature of how social movements are actually sparked. Like, that can be sometimes tricky to navigate. But at the same time, like, it is a way of getting your message out there. And like, when the correct collection of circumstances occur, it becomes enormously powerful. And it's not just Twitter, but it is like things like Instagram. It is like, watching Instagram reels. How many of us have actually gotten our education about communism, about socialism, about all of these things that we didn't even get in our primary education in our schools? And it's so accessible on social media because there are so many teachers out there. How many of us have learned about different types of feminism? First wave feminism, second wave, third wave, intersectional feminism. And of course, also, don't underestimate the power of social media as a resource for the legacy media enterprises. And by legacy media, I'm talking about things like the news stations, like news reporting apparatus. Because a lot of journalists actually treat Twitter or Instagram as the new watering hole, and that's where they are inspired to get ideas. That's where they pluck people for interviews. That's where they keep their pulse on the finger of. And social media in many ways, despite the fact that we get choked by algorithms that are sometimes inherently racist or sexist. Social media in many ways does level the playing field because everybody does have a voice, even though some voices are intentionally or unconsciously drowned out. And it allows you to build community in ways that we haven't been able to do so before. So even if we are spread across the planet, we're able to make connections with different people that we previously didn't have access to. And so I find social media, for all of the ways it's incredibly toxic, to be also incredibly empowering. So you just have to seek out the good. You have to seek out the people who are part of your community. And you have to outbuild the people who are part of really, really toxic communities and nasty spaces. And I think that we have the power to do that. As cynical as I am about everything else, I think that that is one of the things that we can be great with. And I'm done speaking. I always have to remember to say that on
yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely a challenge. Oh, you go ahead, Brenda. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say I got nothing because I am terrible with social media. And I've actually been sitting at Christopher Sebastian's feet and learning from him because I have no expertise in that area whatsoever.
Hello, this is Yvette. I can second everything that Sebastian was just saying, and also to add that with that social media, we can often get caught up in the spreading awareness phase and kind of going in circular motion. So I did want to add that there is also the opportunity to use what we learn and the people that we meet to mobilize and organize. And specifically also shout out to EA, who I see in the audience of Clubhouse. She is one of the co-founders of We Are VAO. We are VAAO, and I know they're on Instagram with a link to their platform. And I shout out her platform specifically because it is a space where, yes, there's spreading of awareness, but it's a space to link up with others and to organize and to move into action some of the things that we are talking about. And sort of, I see as more of sometimes going in circles on Instagram and on Twitter. I'm not on there anymore, but you can get a little stagnant, in my opinion. And so it's just great to know that there are platforms like that where you can kind of come on with the intention to actually move away from the platform and get things done. This is Yvette, and I'm done speaking.
Thank you for that. This is Jamila. And you already know, I do social media for Afro-Vegan Society. I also do social media for myself. And y'all know the vibes. It is draining. Social media is a draining place. It is a scary and exciting place, especially Twitter and Tumblr. And but at the same time, I learned pretty much everything about. I know that Tumblr is not a good resource for this type of stuff, so please be gentle right now. But I learned most of what I know about gender from Tumblr, and I'm not even joking. That was a great place for me to um, learn more about the gender spectrum and all those types of things. And I'm not even mad about that. It helped me. It was a great avenue. And social media to me is a great avenue for change, because there are people who are truly genuinely interested in creating community. And that's what social media to me should be all about. At least some people don't like it for community, some people like it to be hateful, but social media is really all about being social, being in communities of people who think like you, like-minded people. And of course it seems like we're talking into a bubble, a lot of the times, preaching to the choir. But you just never know who's watching, you never know who's looking, you never know how your example can affect change in other people. And social media is like the first place to do that, especially since we're not outside a lot for obvious reasons right now. We're mostly at home. The mobile is kind of all we have sometimes to create connections with other people. So yeah, social media is very, very important for activist type work. Okay, cool. So we can go on to our last and final question of the day of this panel, and that is, each person on this panel is working in their own way to bring about awareness of global environmental issues. How can people connect with each one of us so that they can engage with us, share, and support our efforts? So basically, I guess this question is asking, let us know where we can find you, because we all deserve that type of, we all have platforms to help other people. Where can people see your platforms?
This is Yvette. I don't even know what Tumblr is, Jamila. I just wanted to say that. I'm glad you're learning so much, but I don't even know what's going on. Tumblr. Anyway, I hardly have a social media presence. I try and keep up with my Instagram, so that is vegan_abolitioniste, and I'm on Clubhouse, as you can see, some of you. So that's about that. I do try and spend as much time as I can away from the apps. So I'm trying to marry the two a little bit more seamlessly. But that I won't use up any more space. That's all I have to say about me.
So like, I'm on social media technically, but like, I'm not on social media, much to my Afro-Vegan Society team's unhappiness. And I mean, I'm gonna do better, Jamila, is what I'm trying to say here. But like, so I'm on there. So on Instagram, vegan food at Vegan Food Justice, on Twitter, at Vegan Queen Bee. Obviously on Clubhouse, and then on Facebook. Just don't even look for me on Facebook. Lord knows, it's just a hot, it's a hot mess up on there, just acting up, acting a fool. But I do have a fan page where it's not quite so bad on Facebook. And I think I might even be on LinkedIn. I don't know. So anyway, but the best way to connect with me right now is probably gonna be, just just email me, Brenda at afrovegansociety.org. You know what I mean? If you just want to connect. And then there will be a podcast coming up in the next couple months. Yeah, thank you. Oh, and then I do have a Patreon as well for anybody who wanted to connect with me in that way and support the work that the activism that I'm doing. And that's about that. This is Brenda, and I'm done speaking.
This is Christopher Sebastian, and obviously I am everywhere, but also simultaneously nowhere. One of the things that everyone should definitely think when it comes to social media is that you don't have to be active on every platform. Choose one that work for you, for your mental health, for your emotional well-being, and for and for your style of activism. that you do. Some people that are more visual are probably going to be drawn to TikTok. I am, however, not using TikTok for any of the work that I do, but I love going there because it allows me to decompress. Some people who are visual also might like Instagram, but like I am active on Instagram. I'm also active on Facebook to a degree. Like these things fascinate me. My Facebook is easy to find. You just like go to Facebook and type in Christopher Sebastian. I am searchable. My Instagram handle is _Christopher_Sebastian. And my Twitter handle, which is the one that I use absolutely the least, is @Chris_Sebastian, spelled with a 3 instead of an E. So it's S3B, like for Sebastian. That's probably super confusing, but like, gosh, there's already a Chris and a Chris Sebastian out there, so I had to do what I could. And of course, you can find me on Patreon. So if anybody wants to support me, I'm going to pick the Patreon. It is patreon.com or patreon.com/Christopher Sebastian. And any little bit helps. I really, really appreciate being able to participate in this today with all of you fine people. And this is Christopher Sebastian, and I'm done speaking on Clubhouse.
All right, and I'll be really quick with that. So you already know Afro-Vegan Society. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. There's probably something else that I'm leaving out right now, but we're basically on it all, y'all. So check us out there at Afro-Vegan Society. Once again, we have a website, afrovegansociety.org. We're also not even halfway done with our event today for Earth Day. So please go to afrovegansociety.org/events to register for free for our Earth Day event lasting until 7 or 8 today. Also, I have my own thing, the Soulful Veganista. I'm so grateful for you, Christopher, for saying that we don't have to be on it all, because that is some pressure that I put on myself in the past. So I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, LinkedIn, and YouTube as well. A lot of pressure to be on that. So you don't have to be on it all, y'all. But I'm on there as well. I also have my own Patreon. We also have our Patreon for Afro-Vegan Society. It's patreon.com/Afro-Vegan. And I have my own Patreon, patreon.com/The Soulful Veganista. So, yeah, it's pretty much it. I have my website, thesoulfulveganista.com. And it looks like we are
wait. I know that Isaias is on Instagram at Queer Brown Vegan, correct?
Yes, he's also on Twitter. He's also has a Facebook page. And he's also on TikTok.
Okay.
And y'all already know he's on Clubhouse. So yes, check him out there. Check us all out everywhere, y'all. Thank you so much for joining us for the panelists and for the audience today on Earth Day. We appreciate you listening and joining in and just, chatting with us on this beautiful Earth Day. So yeah.
And I just want all of the panelists to know, and not necessarily the people in the audience, but all the panelists, we're all best friends now. Like, you're all my best friends, including Isaias. I just gotta email him and let him know. And like, you know what? Forget it. Everybody in the audience, we're all best friends too.
Yep.
So follow all of us. We'll follow you back, and let's stay connected. Let's definitely stay connected.
It's a yes for me. I'm dead. Awesome. Wonderful. We'll have a great Earth Day, everyone. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right. Take care.
All right.